Hi, welcome to America Uncovered. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Hey, have you ever thought about how unfair it is that we call this bodybuilding, but not this? I mean, it takes work to build your body to look like that. Or have you wondered about the dangers of artificial intelligence? Specifically, that they're being programmed with masculinist, imperialistic, and rationalist data? Straight white men know this, and they're afraid they'll be oppressed in the same way they've oppressed women and minorities. And don't you think we need to do something about privilege in universities? Perhaps students who are more privileged could get interrupted when they speak, or invited to sit on the floor and wear light chains so they can confront their privileged fragility. If you're wondering if I've gone insane, don't worry, I haven't. But maybe academia has. Those three topics were the actual subjects of academic papers submitted to ranked peer-reviewed journals. But there's a catch. Those papers were hoaxes.
Since approximately June of 2017, I, along with two other concerned academics, Peter Boghossian and Helen Pluckrose, have been writing intentionally broken academic papers and submitting them to highly respected journals in fields that study gender, race, sexuality, and similar topics. We did this to expose a political corruption that's taken hold of the university.
That's right, over the course of 10 months, these three academics wrote, depending on how you count it, 20 to 21 completely bogus academic papers. It was a major troll of academic journals covering cultural, identity, and gender studies.
A culture has developed in which only certain conclusions are allowed, like those that make whiteness and masculinity problematic. The fields we're concerned about put social grievances ahead of objective truth. So as a simple summary, we call the problem grievance studies.
Now I know what you're thinking. They must be far-right conservative types. But get this. The three academics call themselves left-leaning liberals. Wait, compared to right-leaning liberals? Anyways, the papers started with politically fashionable conclusions, which they worked backward to support by aping the relevant field's methods and arguments, and sometimes inventing data. For example, the Fat Bodybuilding paper was written to see if journals will accept arguments which are ludicrous and positively dangerous to health if they support cultural constructivist arguments around body positivity and fat phobia. The paper involving the Feminist AI, as they called it, was designed to see if journals will publish dense and incoherent psychoanalytic and postmodern theory that problematizes whiteness, maleness, science, and reason as oppressive. And the one that suggested white students sit on the floor in chains was written to see if journals will accept arguments which advocate rating students by their identity, privileging the most marginalized and discriminating against the most privileged. But it gets weirder. Another paper they wrote was called Our Struggle is My Struggle, Solidarity Feminism as an Intersectional Reply to Neoliberal and Choice Feminism. Confused? Perhaps that's the point. The second half of the paper was a rewrite of a chapter from Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf, while taking out the fascism part. There's another paper about the feminist post-humanist politics of what squirrels eat. There was also an analysis of why men like breastrestaurants, restaurants like Hooters. I think we all know the answer. It's definitely the chicken wings. But their hoax conclusion was it's because men are nostalgic for patriarchal dominance and enjoy being able to order attractive women around. But possibly one of the most out there ones was about dog parks. First of all, if you listen to Welcome to Night Vale, you know that you should never go near the dog park. But if you do, maybe you too could study human reactions to rape culture and queer performativity in urban dog parks in Portland, Oregon. That's the title of the paper. The hoax paper's authors said they examined roughly 10,000 genitals and found humans intervened 97% of the time when male dogs were raping/humping other male dogs. But when a male dog was mating with a female, humans intervened only 32% of the time and actually laughed out loud 18% of the time. However, the author did have this word of caution. Because of my own situatedness as a human rather than as a dog, I recognize my limitations in being able to determine when an incidence of dog humping qualifies as rape. Sound bonkers? Well, guess what? It was published in a feminist geography journal called Gender, Place, and Culture. It's now been retracted. But not only was it accepted at first, but the journal honored it as one of the 12 leading pieces in feminist geography as part of the journal's 25th anniversary celebration. That made the authors pretty happy.
Thank you for your contribution to gender, place, and culture, and I hope to be seeing your manuscript in print. Yours truly, PhD, Managing Editor, Gender, Place, and Culture. We have an accepted paper in the #1 feminist geography journal.
They're true blue trolls. True green trolls? In fact, overall, these authors were very successful. To give you an idea, 7 papers published over 7 years is frequently claimed to be the number sufficient to earn tenure at most major universities. They got 4 published in less than a year, including the papers about fat bodybuilding, dog rape culture, and breastrons. Aren't you happy to have added that word to your vocabulary? 3 more papers were accepted, but never made it to publication because their project was exposed before they could be. In addition, 7 more papers were still in play before the experiment ended. That is, the journals were interested, but wanted the authors to make revisions first. That's what happened to the paper about putting white students in chains. The journal wanted revisions, but it wasn't the whole putting students in chains thing that the journal wanted them to revise. They were okay with that. In fact, one of the reviewers wrote, "I like this project very much, but wondered how to make privileged students feel genuinely uncomfortable in ways that are humbling and productive, but not so uncomfortable that they resist with renewed vigor." And just so you know, I didn't even go into some of the really out there papers because I was afraid YouTube would age restrict this video. I did provide the link to their study below, though. Oh, and that paper about squirrel eating habits and feminist post-humanist politics? Well, that one was my own little troll. That wasn't one of the hoax papers. It was a real and totally serious paper that got published in Gender, Place, and Culture. But while the idea that these hoax papers got published seems silly, does it actually matter? According to the authors of this study, yes. They say they did this experiment because scholarship based less upon finding truth and more upon attending to social grievances has become firmly established, if not fully dominant, within these fields.
This is deeply concerning, because the work of grievance scholars goes on to be taught in classes, to design educational curricula, to be taken up by activists, to influence how media is produced, and to misinform journalists and politicians about the true nature of our cultural realities.
For instance, the white students being put in chains paper was based on a real concept called progressive stack. It's where professors call on students who may be, for a variety of reasons, less likely to have their say. These reasons may be based on race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or disability status. So in a classroom setting, that would mean calling on a black lesbian before a straight white man. If you're white and that makes you uncomfortable, well, according to this paper published in the International Journal of Critical Pedagogy, you have white fragility. It was written by Robin DiAngelo. No, I'm not citing her because she's white. I actually don't see race, so you'll have to tell me what ethnicity she is. According to these guys, white fragility is the idea that white people have become fragile because of their privilege and will act out like spoiled children if it is challenged. And DiAngelo's paper had a big impact. The term has become part of the standard cultural zeitgeist. It landed her a book deal, and the phrase even appeared in billboards that criticized white supremacy. Those were in Portland, Oregon. Of course they were. I mean, they could practically be billboards for Portlandia. So this is why these academics felt this troll was necessary, that privilege is a sin in certain branches of academia.
The best I can tap into is that there's this kind of like religious architecture in their mind where privilege is sin, privilege is evil, and they've identified education as the place where it has to be fixed. So you can come up with these really nasty arguments like, well, let's put white kids in chains on the floor at school as an educational opportunity. And if you frame it in terms of overcoming privilege, and then you frame their resistance, that they won't want this to happen to them, that they would complain about this. If you frame that in terms of, oh, they only complain about that because they're privileged and they can't handle it because their privilege made them weak, then it's right in.
Which, when you think about it, doesn't sound too far off from the philosophy of Karl Marx, that society is made of the oppressed and oppressor, and the oppressed need to rise up and conquer their oppressors. But Marx's philosophy, and I know this will shock you, did not lead to utopia on Earth. Now, as you can imagine, reactions to this hoax have been mixed. Some, like this Harvard professor, felt it shed light on outlandish studies published in these types of journals. Another Harvard professor told the New York Times, "What they have shown is that certain journals, and perhaps to an extent certain fields, can't distinguish between serious scholarship and a ridiculous intellectual hoax." But this Caltech physicist criticized it as pointless trolling, while others said it was potentially unethical and doesn't show what it seems to show. But whether it was pointless trolling or sophisticated satire, the grievance study's authors believe it was worth it, even if it destroys their careers. According to the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Boghossian doesn't have tenure and expects the university will fire or otherwise punish him. Ms. Pluckrose predicts she'll have a hard time getting accepted to a doctoral program. Mr. Lindsay said he expects to become an academic pariah, barred from professorships or publications. But in the end, the authors don't want you to walk away from this with the idea that social justice and equality are not important. Actually, the opposite. Remember, they describe themselves as left-leaning liberals. They said they did this because these fields of study do not continue the important and noble liberal work of the civil rights movements. They corrupt it while trading upon their good names to keep pushing a kind of social snake oil onto a public that keeps getting sicker. For us to know anything about injustice in society and be able to show it to those who are unaware or in denial of it, scholarship into it must be rigorous. Currently, it is not, and this enables it, and social justice issues with it, to be dismissed. So I want to hear what you think about grievance studies. Leave your comments below. And if you like this episode, remember, America Uncovered only exists because of support from you. YouTube demonetizes videos that are too controversial, so we rely on contributions from fans like you through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Head over to patreon.com/AmericaUncovered to learn more. The link is in the description below. And also, if you haven't already, subscribe for more episodes. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.